Digital Financial Services, DFS. So DFS, especially mobile money, offers significant potential to advance women's economic empowerment through mechanisms including improved financial privacy, reduced mobility and safety risk, and strengthened bargaining power. However, persistent barriers such as a limited digital and financial literacy and fears of fraud continue to hinder women's full participation. This session presents 3 studies from sub-Saharan Africa that explore how DFS, digital financial services, can empower women in diverse contexts, while also highlighting the key obstacles that must be addressed to ensure meaningful and sustained empowerment. So I'll now introduce and invite our 3 carefully selected presenters to come forward and take their seats. They are already here anyway. We have 1 presenter online. So our first presenter is Dr. Vida Afarebea Agyen. So Dr. Agyen is a development economist who works at the Audit Service. She holds a PhD in economics and has a decade of professional and academic experience specializing in microeconomics, quantitative methods, and statistics. Dr. Agyen also works as a freelance consultant to the Ghana Statistical Service, and she's also currently a researcher with the Retail Finance Distribution Research Initiative at ISE. Her research interest is in development economics, with a focus on vulnerable populations, inequality, health, and education and digital innovations. So this afternoon she'll be presenting on firms and digital payments, evidence from central microdata. Please, with a round of applause, let's welcome Dr. Agyen. So I think you can take a seat there. Our second speaker this afternoon is Mr. Elijah Kipchumba. Elijah is a research fellow for We Connect and We Define initiatives at BIGD. He's currently completing his PhD in economics at Trinity College Dublin. His doctoral research evaluated youth upskilling programs and interventions that promote the social and economic inclusion of persons with disability. He holds an MSc in quantitative economics from Makerere University and a BSc in applied statistics from Manseno University. Elijah has 8 years of experience in development research. This afternoon, Elijah will be talking to us about digital finance and intra-household decision-making, evidence from mobile money use in Kenya. Elijah, you are welcome. Please take a seat. Our third speaker is online. She's Rachel Heath. She's a professor at University of Washington. So Rachel is the Alberta C. Cochrane Professor of Economics at University of Washington. Her research interests are in development and labor economics. Much of her research focuses on increased labor market opportunities for women in developing countries, such as the garment industry in Bangladesh. She studies how these new job opportunities opportunities are changing women's lives. The factors that influence women's decision to join the labor force and firms' hiring decisions, and how to improve working conditions in export manufacturing. Professor Heath's presentation today is on repaying loans in mobile money, or loans with mobile money, impact of female microfinance clients in Tanzania. So she will be joining us online. So our presenters would have 15 minutes each to present their slides. We are all encouraged to write down our questions. At the end of the session, after all the 3 presentations, they will allow you to ask the questions and they can answer. Okay, so without further ado, I'll invite Vida to kick off with the first presentation.
Okay, so good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Master Dennis, I thought because we did public school yesterday, you know about what happens when we have afternoon schools. Okay, so I'm really excited to present on firms and digital payment in Ghana. But before I do that, I'd like to share a story with you. So a few days ago, I was at the Driver and Vehicle Licensing Authority to renew my roadworthy certificate. And as part of the process, I was supposed to make payment. Now I got to the cashier. I had my debit card and of course money on my Momo. And she told me, sorry ma'am, but we receive cash only. You can imagine, I was really disappointed. It took me about 30 minutes to get to the nearest ATM to find cash, come back and make payment. So what's the point? The whole point is that if firms that are supposed to be gatekeepers to digital payments fail to adapt, then this is going to sort of limit the reach for individuals, okay? It will also more or less discourage individuals from adapting. So it's important, because of this, it's important for us to look at the role of firms as far as digital payments are concerned. To this end, Retail Finance Distribution and Research Initiative, which is under the Institute of Social, Statistical and Economic Research of the University of Ghana, collaborated with the Ghana Statistical Service to conduct a census. Please, let's move to the next 2 slides. Okay. So basically, the census was to help us identify the extent of adoption and usage of digital payment system by firms, right? And we also wanted to find out about the drivers of adoption and then usage. We wanted to also find about the gender dynamics as far as business performance and also digital payment adoption is concerned. Then finally, we wanted to find out, for those firms that are not adapting, the reasons why they are not. Next, please. Okay, so let me briefly talk about the data. This data sits with the Ghana Statistical Service. It's under the Integrated Business Establishment Survey. It is called a survey, but we know that before a survey happens, there's supposed to be a census, okay? So the Ghana Statistical Service is mandated to carry out censuses every 10 years. So they first of all do what we call the population and housing census, and afterwards they do what we call the economic census, okay? So we do the economic census, and after have the IBES is in 2 phases. The first is the census, and after is the survey. So the survey will be run shortly. But we already did the census in 2024. So it was in this census that Refine thought it wise to embed a digital payment module, or if you would want to call it digital finance module, into the census. So as part of their instruments, there were questions on the payment systems that firms use. There were questions on the technologies, whether or not they are using mobile money payment, whether they were using QR codes, and so on and so forth. Then we also asked questions on how these digital payments are being used, whether they use it to receive payments, or they use it to pay suppliers, or they use it to, pay employees. We also asked questions about the perceived benefits, okay? So those who are adopting, what do they intend to get from adopting? Then lastly is the barriers to adoption. For those that are not adopting, why are they not? Aside this model, we know IBES is something that goes on every 10 years, I've mentioned. And so there is a supplemental data that we were fortunate to have. So we are able to get data on the outcomes of firms, okay? So more or less the business performance and also business characteristics. So we have the firm sizes, the sectors that they are engaged in. You could think of all the firm characteristics. Next. Okay, so basically it tells us the richness of this work, right? So we are not talking about surveys, but we are talking about census. So we are looking at all businesses in Ghana, right from the hawker that you just bought water from to the online business that you made payment to. So every business in Ghana, IPA should be part, MasterCard, the public sectors, private sectors, the universities, every institution that is engaged in some form of economic activity. Next, please. So this is just a snapshot, okay, of the businesses in Ghana. We realize that in Ghana, on the average, with regards to firm size, a firm employs between 3 to 4 people, okay? And you can see the wide variation in this, starting from the one-man businesses, where the owner is also the employee, and also firms that are employing about 50,000 people. Let me move to the sector. This is telling us that Ghana is sector-driven, in the sense that we see 74% of businesses in Ghana operating in the service sector. Agric is 2.6, sadly, and industry is 24%. Then we can look at business registration, whether or not businesses have registered with the Ghana Revenue Authority or the Registrar General's Authority. For the hawkers, we are even looking at their registering with the district assemblies. So for firms that had actually registered, we saw only about 8.7%. And that should show you the kind of firms that we have in Ghana. Most of them are informal, ranging from, that's like 91%, okay? So it tells you the kind of businesses that we have in our country. Then finally, on firm size, I would like to talk about the annual revenue. So if you want to look at the size of the firm with regards to the amount that they receive at the end of the year, we see that about 70% of firms are receiving below 10,000 a year. 10,000 Ghana cedis, I'm not talking about dollars. Okay, next, please. So getting into the facts, and I would want to call it facts because we are talking about census here, so it is what is, right? So basically in Ghana, we would say that the rate of adoption is about 37%. We should have been excited about this because it is next to cash. We know cash is dominant, cash is king. But let's look at the global rate, right? Globally, as of 2021, the Findex data recorded 76%. For developing countries, we are looking at 57%. So if this happened in 2021 and in 2024, in Ghana, we are looking at 37% for firms, okay? Firms that are supposed to be gatekeepers. Then we see where the problem is. So, I mean, we are somewhere, but I think we would have to improve. Next, please. So when we zoom into the firms that are not adopting and those that are adopting, we realize that the firms in the informal sector, or those that are informal, are not adopting as compared to those that are formal. Also, those that have low revenue at the end of the year are not adopting. Next. Now we look at the spatial distribution. Considering the spatial distribution, we realize that adoption is really high at the urban areas. So we are looking at the districts that host the regional capitals. Okay, so you'd see Accra, Tamale, Kumasi, places like Cape Coast, Ho, and so on and so forth, recording higher rates as compared to the rural areas. And we look at this, we break this into the merchant payment, right? And we see the same thing with the merchant payment. So when we zoom into the technologies, forgive me, the IT guys, I might be using technologies loosely, so forgive me for that. But when we want to look at the kind of digital payments that are being used, we realize that firms in Ghana, instead of using business-specific payment systems, are using their own personal mobile money to make business transactions. Okay, so they are using their personal Momo to receive money, to make payments, and so on and so forth. And we see that across board. However, it is really prevalent with the smaller firms. I mean, one could argue that with the smaller firms, it's because it takes a lot, it takes some registration before you are able to get the merchant account. Please, next. Okay, so you can skip. So that is to tell you that for the larger firms, they sort of diversify, right? Next, please. Then we look at the business performance, which I think is key for every business and every investor. So we try to look at digital payment adoption and these business performance indicators, and we realize that businesses that had adopted are likely to have more employees, they are likely to be formal, and also likely to have more revenue, right? When you break this off with personal and merchant, you'd see merchants at that side. Thank you. So you would see the merchants doing very well as compared to the digital personal. Next. Okay, then the third fact, it's on females, gender, right? So as far as gender is concerned, we also realize that the female businesses do worse. And I think that the reason why they are doing worse is because they are engaged in the small businesses. So most of the owners had smaller businesses. And obviously, they are the ones in the less than 10,000 Ghana cedis bracket. So we break this off again. Please, next, sorry. Okay, so in as much as female businesses are not doing so well, when you check male-owned businesses with female managers, we realize that such businesses do better than all the other businesses, including male and male. So male owner, male manager, it comes nowhere near male owner and then female manager. I mean, the women are smiling because I think they can see what is now there, where we have female doing the worst. But we'll leave that conversation for another day, maybe when we are looking at causalities. Okay, so the final bit is on barriers. So we realize that lack of knowledge on how to use these digital payment systems where, or what was what most of the firms indicated was the barrier. The next was concerns about fraud, people stealing their money, and then we have uncertainty about the returns. What's in for me? Next, please. So basically, in conclusion, I'm talking about 4 things. The first one being that digital payment is below the global rate, right? We are not where we are supposed to be. Next is on the fact that businesses are using personal mobile money accounts for businesses, which is more costly. We all know that is more costly in terms of the rates and all that. And then the next is the gender dynamics, in that the gender plays a critical role as far as business performance and adoption is concerned. And then the final one is on the barriers, looking at lack of knowledge, fraud concerns, and uncertainty about the benefits. So as part of the recommendations, we are looking at targeted policies. We shouldn't just tell businesses, you have to adapt, you have to, get a digital payment system, but we have to tell them, get a business-specific digital payment system. We also need to educate firms on the benefits of using the digital payment. We also have to sort of give them some incentive to experiment, maybe 3 months or so to, try it and let's see. And then I think the regulators, the providers are supposed to enhance their security measures to ensure that they build trust for firms and businesses. And also there are lots of women-focused programs. Maybe we can integrate digital payment initiatives into this program in order to make sure that women firms adopt. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Vida. So our next presenter is Elijah Kipchumba.
All right. My name's Elijah. I'm going to be presenting a research project that we did a while ago with Munshi Suleiman. This is a spin-off from the white paper that informed this research initiative of the We Define. And the main motivation to this is that we are encouraging digital finance in the case of, let's say, pioneers like Kenya. But we do not know what are the implications at household level, whether this digital finance adoption or usage does to household decision making, or the capability of women to exert influence over household resources. And that is the gist of what we are trying to achieve in this research project. Next slide, please. We do know that the theory is mobile money are better attuned to women's obstacles. And in essence, we would expect that mobile money would enable women exert more influence in their households, and basically because it helps them improve their outside options, that like they can access more finances that is outside the house. And that has implication that it helps them enact their own preferences, both in their own finance and the finance that is that are deemed for the household. But we do not know, because this digital finance helps both men and women. So what we care about today is what is the differential impact when men and women utilize mobile money. I'm talking of a context where, in the current case, Kenya, which is the context of this study, is Usage of mobile money is probably around 80% of the population are using it. 80 to 90% of the population is using it. We know some evidence that, as Dean Cullen was talking about yesterday, that mobile money or targeted interventions would empower women, but what we care so much is the differential impact. And if it helps women to exert more influence on their decision making, then that would be an ideal case. Next slide, please. So in this paper, we try to speak to the changes in decision making or the decision making power for men and women upon usage of digital finance. And what we try to do is we use a variation in terms of the distance to mobile money as our instrument for mobile money use. And we find that women who are mobile money users or who are induced by the proximity or by reduction in the proximity to mobile finance do register an improvement in terms of their decision-making power. And we argue that privacy is the key mechanism, not necessarily by broadening the outside options or access to resources outside the household, but it's the capability of women to take advantage of the mobile money to exert their preferences or to hide their money from paying eyes and use that advantage to exert more influence onto their resources. Next slide. So we used two data sources for this research. First is a census or a geospatial mapping of all digital payments locations in the country. So mobile money in Kenya, what it started is you have a mobile wallet in your account, but for you to cash out, you need a point of payment, like a mobile money agent. So in 2007, mobile money started in Kenya, and there was a rollout driven mostly by the private sector. And the rollout did not have, at the beginning it wasn't strategic because these are profit-minded enterprises, but it was mostly random due to the fact that there was some capacity constraint in Safaricom, who is the primary owner of mobile money. So they would approve mobile money agent randomly across the countries. There was no systematic and say, oh, we are targeting this region because it matters more for their bottom line. But it is like a fast come, fast serve, and it doesn't matter whether it's from the northern Kenya, central Kenya, or whatever. So we take advantage of that random rollout and calculate the proximity measure for mobile money. So the second, which is now giving us the outcome measure, is a survey that is meant to elicit financial inclusion and insight survey, which was done in 2007. And we focus on two respondents, which is one is the head of a household and the spouse. And then we test the difference in the impacts for both men and women. So this is like just a map of the two. The first on the right is the concentration of mobile money across the country in 2015. And then on the right is the location of the second respondent that we extract the outcome of interest, and we care about just the decision-making power here. Next slide, please. So we use an IV, or instrument of variable regression approach, where we instrument our key independent variable here is mobile money usage. It's not access, it's usage. So by usage, we mean that you are an active user in 3 months prior to the survey. So we compare users versus non-users. And we have the second component, which is you are either a man or a woman. And our instrument for this case is what is the distance between your household location during the survey and the nearest mobile money agent. So we have the instrument as well as the usage, and our outcome is how much decision-making power that you exert over household resources. Then we now interact both the instrument and the mobile money usage with the gender of the respondent. Next slide. We control for a bunch of characteristics for the respondent as well as the location. Next slide. And into the main result, what we care so much is what are the coefficients that I've highlighted here, which is the interaction between mobile money usage and the gender dummy. The reason why I'm just highlighting the bottom of this table is because our instrument was not that strong enough, so we had to default for methods that are robust to weak instruments. So we can talk about this in chat about this later. But the econometric approach is to try and use like Anderson-Robin kind of approach. And what we see is that if we care about, because we split the decision-making domains into two, those that are household related and those that are individual related. So if you look at the highlights on the personal decision, how much decision-making power does a woman have when you are a mobile money user? And we find that there is an increase in the decision-making power, a differential increase in the decision-making power for women as a result of the using mobile money, digital finance for this case. However, we don't find such a robust changes in decision-making power in domains that are related to the household finance. And then we ask ourselves, where or how, what are the mechanisms that is explaining the gains in decision-making power on the money owned by the woman, but not the money that is there in the household wallet? Next, please. So in the white paper, we identify a series of mechanisms that we think that mobile money would enhance women's decision-making power or economically empowering women. And we have a series of them. We care about we are only able to elicit two mechanisms in this case because of limitations of data. And the first case is probably mobile money is able to broaden women's outside options. In this case, that because mobile money is more like, it started as a P2P, a person-to-person payment, it would be the case that women would use mobile money, or women and men would use mobile money to kind of solicit resources from other members or other of their friends that are not necessarily members of their household. So if mobile money would enable women to tap into a wider network, then by the fact that they have more money or more resources, they can exert more decision-making power in their household. The second mechanism is the privacy route, which is because mobile money has like a PIN that it's private to you, then if the woman is able to use that or to take advantage of that and use the PIN to kind of guard her resources from being expropriated by other members of household, then by default, it's her money, so she can decide whatever she wants to do with it without the husband getting to know. So those are the two mechanisms that we speak into in the paper. We don't have data to back up the other mechanisms. So next slide. So what we look at is, in the first causal mechanism, is to look at the ability of women to extract resources that are outside the household. And here we focus on remittances. And we find that mobile money does not necessarily give women an advantage in terms of soliciting resources outside the household. But if we look at the privacy angle, we find that mobile money users, when they are women, they are less scared, or they say that they have alternative ways of keeping their money private. So essentially mobile money is enable them to keep their money private, away from the prying eyes of their husbands or other family members. And that way helps women to exert more decision-making power in their household. That is what we try and argue, that it's the privacy thing that is enabling women to exert more influence. Next slide. To kind of conclude, what we find is that probably mobile money empowers women, but to control only their personal finance, not necessarily the finance of the household. So is it transformative? I don't know. And the argument that we make here is it is probably the privacy domain that is the privacy mechanism is the one that is at play, rather than other mechanisms that in driving women's decision-making power. And whether this can be sustained in the long term, because we don't know, because if they, how long can you keep something secret? How long from your spouse can you keep your PIN secret? It could be temporary, it could be long term. Most likely, if I could take a bet, it's temporary. And that's the end of my presentation.
Thank you very much. Okay, so now our next presenter is Professor Rachel Heath. Is she online?
Hi.
Okay.
Just let me know. I'll share my screen now.
We can hear you, but we can't see you. Hi, Rachel. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, you can start.
Okay, wonderful. Well, thank you so much to the organizers of the conference and to all the audience for being here. I'm really sorry I couldn't join you in Accra, which is a lovely city that I haven't unfortunately been to in many years. But I'm glad to be able to at least join virtually to tell you about this research, which is quite complementary to what Elijah just presented on kind of looking kind of similarly on the effects of mobile money on women in particular. Michigan, and I'm Rachel. To kind of start, I think we can all kind of agree that empowering women is kind of a really important policy goal. And so, there are a lot of programs that think of different ways to improve women's income as a way to do that. And you can imagine cash transfers, job training programs, or kind of, big push programs like graduation programs. But a lot of the ways that we think that programs like that work are through improving a woman's income or income earning ability. But, if we successfully improve a woman, if we want the woman to be truly empowered, then women need to be able to retain control over their income for that to be truly kind of empowering for them. So, how do we do that? I don't know why my slides are not advancing. Oh, here we go now. So, there's a large literature in development economics that shows that, kind of women are willing to take costly actions in order to control money. And so, it seems really important to them. They're willing to pay some cost to do that. And so, but if we can improve women's control over their finances, then, that improves the woman's economic outcomes, and including a paper by my co-author Emma that looks at so, we think it is quite plausible that mobile money can kind of help women control money by keeping funds both private, enact their preferences within the household. So, there's a lot of potential there, and mobile money is popular throughout the world, but its use does remain kind of limited amongst women. So, kind of to set the stage, so 40% of adults in sub-Saharan Africa use mobile money. And that's been shown to have beneficial impacts on households, especially after a negative shock, that kind of mobile money is an important coping mechanism after a shock. But a lot of the focus that mobile money has been on is for that, especially as I mentioned, after shocks. But if we're thinking about kind of gender-specific usage, it's less common for women to be, or for anybody to be using mobile money for things like savings or making payments. Only 23% of people in this survey used it for savings, and 13% for mobile payments. So, that's kind of, at baseline, there's kind of scope for, kind of both genders to use mobile money more, but especially women, because kind of, women are less likely to use mobile less often. They have fewer uses, fewer different types of transactions that they use, and they tend to be smaller values. So again, there's just, there is some scope for women for an intervention to increase women's usage of mobile money. So in this paper, we're going to ask the question, does increasing women's use of mobile money increase their empowerment? And to do so, we're going to use a randomized controlled trial among female microfinance clients in Tanzania. So, the intervention that we're examining is, again, of microfinance loans through mobile money. This is looking at the, it's the counterpart to that, looking at mobile repayment. So that's the, that's the intervention. The status quo, the control treatment, was just continued to use cash repayment of these loans. We're going to what I'm going to show you today are impacts after 9 months, but we actually have a longer run follow-up study in the field, which we're really excited about, to kind of show, to show, kind of how these effects persist. So the study location is 7 microfinance branches in the Mwanza region of Tanzania. So you can see that in the inset of the map here, right on right by Lake Victoria, and then on the right are the 7 branches that we worked with. So among the women in our sample, they're most have completed primary education, 94%. 63% are married, so that's the modal respondent, but we do have a significant minority that are not. As far as mobile money usage, so in general, the women had used mobile money before. 95% had, 60% in the past month. But corresponding to the broader data that I cited earlier, their usage, they hadn't usually used it for things like saving or receiving payment from a customer, and only 4% had ever paid a supplier. So again, we thought there was potential to increase these usage if there was spillover from kind of the mobile repayment treatment that we're studying. So they're all micro entrepreneurs. That's that's the population that had gotten the loan. So on average, they had 7 years of business experience, and the profit of their business was about $300 US. What kinds of businesses did they do? The modal business was kind of a retail business like a grocery store, but some operated hotels or restaurants or other service-related businesses. So the net loans they had were about $1,000 US. So the intervention we did, so there were 152 microfinance groups in the sample, and we randomly assigned 101 of them to treatment, leaving 51 for control. So the women that were in treated groups, they received some training on how to use mobile money to repay their loan. They were encouraged to use mobile money for every loan repayment, and they were there was this kind of encouragement that this was the preferred repayment method, but it was still voluntary. And I'll show you take up, and you can see that there was some variation in the treatment groups and how much women did use mobile money for repayment. They did have to pay a fee, a 1% fee for making the loan repayment with mobile money. I won't talk about it much today, but I'm happy to talk more in the Q&A or offline. It was cross-randomized with a 50% subsidy for that repayment fee. So the data we used, we did a baseline survey in April 2022. An inline study, as I mentioned, 9 months later, so that makes it February 2023. And we also have administrative data from BRAC, the mode of repayment, mobile money versus cash for each of the approximately 40 weeks in the survey, and loan repayment behavior. So things like late payment, default, or did they take out other loans? Here's the take up that I mentioned. There was a little bit of spillover to the control group where they kind of did a little bit of repayment, but as you see, there was a clear difference between treatment and control as far as the take up of mobile repayment. And within the treatment group, there's a lot of variation. Some of the treatment group never took it up. Others, took it up almost completely and did almost all of their repayment with mobile money. That averages out to 8.25 repayments in the. So our main outcomes, and just to give you the summary of what what this mobile repayment, the impacts it had on women. So our main outcomes were a use of mobile money index, an index of the woman's control over finances in the house, and an empowerment index of her the power she has. And as you see, we show you the kind of overall effects here. We'll dig in a little more to specifically these what variables are in these and what variables changed. But kind of as a by means of an overview, you see that mobile money increased, the woman's control over finances increased, and subsequently her empowerment within the household also increased. And all of these are effects about 0.3 standard deviations. So to dig into the first outcome, so mobile money usage. So money in the treatment groups, women were 6% more likely to allow their customers to pay using mobile money. the increase. So, it's a pretty sizable increase. And we also saw an increase in savings using mobile money, which you might think is kind of an important for the kind of a private place to keep savings. So the 17% of the control group saved with mobile money, and that increased by in the treatment group. And so they're more likely to save, and that led to increased savings of about $12 US. So subsequently, women's empowerment improved. So, when we constructed an index of empowerment that was constructed using measures of sharing pressure, household decision-making, business decision-making, and need for her husband's permission to do different activities, that was the index that you saw that went up by about 0.3 standard deviations. And it was particularly driving that was when we dug into the different measures was a reduction in sharing pressure. So women reported 20% less pressure to share their income with their spouse. Interestingly, they discuss income with their spouse more frequently in the treated group. So, it's, kind of the ability to keep some private actually freed them up to, to have these discussions, which was interesting. We also did an incentivized game where we saw did women take a lower payment in order to get the money themselves rather than more money going to their spouse. And in the treated group, they were less likely to take a lower payment to themselves. So that was kind of that was another way that their empowerment showed up. So even though the overall index did increase, significant impact on the household and decision making power or the husband's permission. So it really was this sharing pressure that was changing. When we conducted heterogeneity by different factors, what really popped out was that these empowerment effects were driven by the women that were least empowered at baseline. So that was, that it was really nice to see that we could that this was a good way to empower those women that were not empowered much at baseline. So their behavior on the loans didn't change. So BRAC was excited to see this, that it wasn't kind of making women any less likely to repay. The kind of being late for loan repayment was rare in both groups, but it didn't increase at all in the treatment group. One thing we also looked at was that does this make women, or does it make women less interested in going to meetings because they can repay with mobile money? It doesn't change that. And one thing that we think is happening, we did find effects also on kind of increased social cohesion. And so one thing we think is going on is that it made the meetings less boring because they're not just the mechanical kind of counting of money. It freed the women up to kind of have more substantive discussions. And so, and that does appear that they kind of did still want to keep going to the meetings in their reported preference. We don't see any impact on other household outcomes. So, we had hoped to maybe that kind of more likely to take mobile money payments would improve the women's business, or there'd be other kind of effects in business, but we don't see that. There's no average change in the business profits, nor on other household incomes like consumption or total income. So, on one hand, it's kind of, it's too bad this wasn't kind of a driver of business success. But on the other hand, it also is kind of very interesting then from a theoretical standpoint that it doesn't look like it's necessary to improve a woman's income in order to improve her financial control and empowerment. If you kind of, it can also be achieved, those goals can also be achieved through increasing their control over income. We also looked for kind of backlash with their spouse, if they kind of, can keep this money private, there's less pressure to share. There was no average impact on their reported happiness or their discord with their spouse. So you can kind of view this two ways. I mean, you would hope that, oh, yes, is there a question?
You've gone past the time.
Oh, okay. I couldn't hear very well, but it sounds like no. So I'll keep going. So, on one hand, you would hope that empowerment is kind of good for women, makes them happier. So we didn't see that, but on the other hand, we also didn't see kind of any evidence of backlash that, kind of increasing their control was, it causing problems with the spouse either. So just to conclude, we studied an intervention that encouraged women to make mobile repayment through, or to repay their microfinance loans through mobile money, and it led to an increase in mobile money usage more generally. That then led to women's empowerment increasing, which was driven by reduced sharing pressure of money with their spouse. So it also kind of led to an increase in overall savings, which was driven by savings with mobile money. So it was an important vehicle for savings. So, to conclude, we think that there really is promise here to, if you kind of integrate digital financial services into, more traditional financial services like microfinance, can improve outcomes for women. So thank you.
All right, thank you very much. So we don't have enough time left. We just have time for maybe 3 or 4 questions for all presenters. I have some questions here myself, but let's start with the gentleman at the back. Sorry?
Yeah, thank you. My name is Kwanzaa from Ministry of Gender, Children and Social Protection. I have a question for the second, my boss here. Yes.
Elijah.
Mr. Elijah, thank you. You mentioned that the instrument you used in the analysis was not 100% reliable. I want to know the degree of margin of error that you set, that you anticipated that will impact on the findings. I didn't hear you mention it. I want to know to what extent you do set the margin of error. Yeah, thank you.
All right. Is there a second hand?
Thank you. Yeah, thanks to all the presenters. My question's for Vida. Yeah, that's amazing census data. The very cool geospatial visualizations of digital payments across Ghana. What's interesting, of course, is the continued use of the personal mobile money account and your recommendation, encouragement of the use of the merchant accounts. We're doing something similar on digital payments in Tanzania, and we see a similar trend. I'm just, one thing that many of the business merchants ask is, well, what's the benefit of the merchant account? So I'm just curious in the Ghana context, what is the benefit of the merchant account, using digital payments versus the personal account?
That's a good question. I had that question as well.
Okay, good afternoon. My question is to Madam Vida. Pardon my insolence, finance is not really my territory, but I still want to know, in your presentation, you said women-owned businesses don't do so well. So I'm assuming maybe it's because they pay more attention doing unpaid care work. But you went ahead to say that businesses that are owned by men but managed by women are doing extremely well. So I want to know, what is the problem and what can we do better? Thank you.
Okay. Last one.
Okay, thank you very much. I think I love the presentation from Dr. Vida, the first presentation. My question goes to the data collection. I know it was a census, but the mode of the collection, was it through secondary, primary, and all that? And also, looking at the personal accounts and merchants, the difficulty of businesses going through the process to be able to get their merchant accounts being done. There are new developments that are also in the system. I don't know if you are much aware. There are systems that are being created where businesses having their own personal accounts, they go through that simple process to have QR code systems, to have USSD, and then they can still receive payments directly without going through a long process. They can just have the scans, still receive payments and all that. I don't know if your study looked at new structures that are enabling business transactions digitally without going through the long process of having your business go through the merchant system. Thank you.
Okay, so thank you very much. The very first one on the case in Ghana. So basically,
that's the value of using a merchant account.
Merchant account to personal.
No, to receive payments. Most of them were using personal.
Yes.
So what's the value? What's the
Okay, so thank you very much. Basically, the rates are lower with the merchant. And when you are using the personal to make payments, paying your suppliers, you pay the same rate as somebody who is using the personal. I mean, personal is more expensive. So if you are a business owner and you are using your personal mobile money to make payment, it means you are paying higher cost, right? So basically the transactional cost. Then it looks like people have, other explanations to that. Then the next one is on the women-owned businesses. Of course, the women-owned businesses are not doing well because they are smaller. Okay, so they are smaller, and most of them are also in the informal sector. They are not formalized. They've not registered with any institution whatsoever. So that explains the reason why they are not doing well. We can get into the causality bit, but as far as the descriptives are concerned, this is what we see. This is what we observe. And we observe that of the managers. I mean, that is to tell us we are good managers, isn't it? So when you pair the female manager to a male-owned businesses, which are relatively bigger, the female managers are able to manage the business well. I mean, I wouldn't want to get into the causality bit. This is the next phase of the study, and we can get into it. Then you asked about the mode of data collection. It's strictly primary, just as we conduct censuses in Ghana. So you have field officers going to businesses. But we got these businesses from the population and housing census. So if you would recall, when they did the population and housing census in 2021, they had asked everybody what kind of business the person was into or what the person was doing. So from there, we are able to get the businesses in Ghana, get to them, and then have the enumeration done. So it was a primary data collection. And then the last one was on, I think the last one was a suggestion. You mentioned that there are several ways in which we could get these merchant accounts without being registered businesses. And I think these are the messages that need to go out there for individuals who have not registered to get the business account. Thank you.
Thank you. There's one question for Elijah.
Thank you so much. The issue of my instrument, for sure. In econometrics jokes, we say friends don't allow friends to use IV. This is the only option that we had, and but we try to look at methods that are robust to weak instrument. It's not that my instrument is invalid. It's a bit weak, and we kind of try and do other simulations within the paper or other alternatives within the paper. If you want to read it a bit more, you can look at it. So the results that I was presenting refers to confidence intervals that are robust to weak instruments. But I'm open to suggestions and beyond what's in the paper at the moment. Yeah, happy to chat later on.
Thank you very much. So in conclusion, I'd just like to say that digital financial payments, can be a problem or an opportunity. For some of us, it's a problem because we spend more these days. You can just get a text message anytime or a message anytime that pay for this or pay for that. My wife, when I tell her to put money on her mobile money, she strategically says no. And then when she's out and she needs to pay for something, she sends me a message, oh, can you send money to this number? I'm buying A or B or C. So that's something, Elijah, it's a mechanism that you need to look into as well. Thank you very much.